Folks, I have a Christmas present for you. And I'm going to put it in a pretty box. I'm going to put a ribbon around it. My Christmas present to you is joy. Happiness, success, cheer, jokes, and the Lord God's joy. Austin, are you behind me, dear?
I am next to you. Yes.
And are you seated comfortably?
Yeah.
And Austin, how did you meet Glendora?
Devin McConnell, when he was going off to college, he was finding a replacement as your assistant. He talked to me about it. I remember at my junior prom. It was his senior prom. And was like, hey, I have this potential job for you. And knowing that I'm like, well, technically knowledgeable in terms of video and video editing and all that stuff. So he
Tech
had
savvy,
yeah. So a couple weeks later, I came with him for a session and helped make your show, and then I was coming, I think, every week for that summer into the fall of that was 2011. So it was June 16th of 2011 was the first.
June 16th.
Yep.
He's got it down to the day.
Yeah.
Well, Austin, where is Kevin McConnell now?
He lives up in Green Island.
That's near Troy, New York, folks.
Yep. He does tech support overnight. So he does the overnight shift of tech support. So he doesn't work at the Apple Store anymore. What he does, he takes the things he learned at the Apple Store, and he does tech support for people who use Apple's computers, and it's overnight. And so so whenever he gets a call, he has to make sure to address the problem.
One more thing, honey, before we leave your friend Kevin McConnell. Kevin was very interested in computer games.
Yes.
And he wrote a book.
Yeah, he was working on a book. I think he still is. What he's currently doing is, so since when he's on the clock for his job, he's allowed to do whatever he wants as long as he is available if he gets a call. And so what he does with his downtime is he works on making documentaries about them.
Now, dear Austin, what does his book on games say?
It talks about the history of one particular game company called Sega.
Called what, dear?
Sega. S-E-G-A.
S as in Sam, honey?
Yep. E as in elephant, G as in gastrointestinal, A as in aardvark.
But you didn't major in physiology, did you?
No.
You majored in psychology.
I know a little bit, yeah.
And anyway, it's about this one particular game.
It's about a company that made games. Yes.
And how is that company doing today in today's slippery game world?
They still exist. They're not at their prime, but they're doing all right because they shifted towards. They don't make video game machines anymore. They only make the games themselves. So back in the 90s and the late 80s, they made the machines, like the consoles and the games.
Oh yeah, I remember Sega very well.
Yep, like Dreamcast,
That was Amy you just heard in the background. What did you say, Amy?
I said I remember Sega very well.
Yep, yeah.
You used to play the game, honey?
When I was a little girl, we had a neighbor who was a friend of ours. He had one of those consoles that Austin was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Well, listen, Austin. We're getting off the track, but we have to say that the market is very slippery for games.
Yeah, it's possible for a company to make a real lot of money with games, but it's very difficult. It's
Well, and so then Kevin McConnell went off to Geneseo, the State University of New York,
mm-hmm.
and he put in. Did he put in 4 years there?
I believe he got a degree in I think he was there for 3 years. I think he did an accelerated program, so
he could because he's so smart.
Yeah.
And so my dear Austin went off to Boston, the hub of the universe, And what did you do in Boston?
I did a degree in psychology, and I worked in a social psychology research lab that focused on how language and like cultural background and cultural like the experiences that you have growing up, depending on where you are, how they impact how you experience and process and perceive emotions. So both your own as well as other people's.
And tell me, honey, what years were those?
I started in the spring of 2013, which was the end of my first year, and I did 5 years for college because I worked in this lab instead of taking classes for a few semesters.
And honey,
I did that until I graduated 4 years ago.
Every year you tried so hard to get into graduate school and be a candidate for a PhD in psychology.
Clinical psych, yep.
And it never worked, honey. Why? What's beneath that ugly
I think
thing?
it's because I didn't actually want to do it that much. It was just, it was like a potential route towards doing work that was interesting, and it was flexible enough to where I could teach, and I wanted to be a therapist, basically, but I wanted to do research as well. And the thing was, it was like, I was just trying to come up with something I could do, but like, with a PhD, you gotta know exactly what you want to do. Like,
oh, really?
So I got waitlisted a couple times,
I'd like
but
to have
ultimately
you
didn't get in.
explain that. With
Yeah.
a PhD, you have to know exactly. Tell me.
Yeah, because like it's as much about if you're qualified as if you're a good fit for someone, like one of the professors at the university who's doing research. Like, you need to be a good fit for the work that they're doing.
Austin, does it have anything to?
Sorry.
Does it have anything to do with this overemphasis on you have to be published?
Yes, it's a big factor. I mean, it's like you gotta be ready to contribute to whatever your advisor is publishing. So you gotta help, and you need to want to publishing your own stuff that they can assist you with, but without pulling their attention away from their own work, because they need to be published too.
And those who applied simultaneously, the ones who succeeded, why? Why did
It's because they're a good fit for one of the professors. It's like I got waitlisted a bunch of times because I was qualified to be like a PhD student, but I didn't get accepted because there were other people who were a better fit, who had research that was relevant, that was ready to go. For me,
Austin.
I had an idea, but it wasn't like I wasn't passionate about any of these projects. I was just, I'll do something, and but they wanted someone who's like, I'll do this, you know.
Austin, why were they a better fit?
Because their research was already figured out. They knew exactly what they wanted to do. And it was very similar to what the professors were doing.
So I believe you tried valiantly for 3 years.
Yeah, then I switched. I still applied to some PhD programs, but I switched over to like environmental science and stuff like that.
You switched.
Yeah, so 3 times I applied to be a therapist.
Well, let's get that straight.
Mm-hmm.
You switched your field from psychology
to like not quite environmental science exclusively, but like environmentally oriented stuff. I was looking at environmental psychology. That was a PhD program I applied to. I applied to a master's of environmental science. I applied to a PhD in what is called community research and action, and my thing was focusing on like urban forestry. So that one I got waitlisted on. Didn't end up getting accepted, but since I was waitlisted, they gave me a half tuition scholarship for the master's degree.
Who did?
Vanderbilt.
Vanderbilt University,
in
located
Nashville. Nashville, Tennessee, yes. And so
and they gave you a half
tuition. Yeah, they're like, since you got waitlisted for the PhD, we want you, so we'll let you do the master's, so community development and action rather than research, for half price. And so I was like, well, I got accepted into the environmental science program, but it would have been full in Michigan, but it would have been full price, so it was cheaper for me to go to Vandy, you know. And ultimately it worked out well because 2 years in grad school was extremely stressful, and
say that again.
Ultimately, it worked out well that I didn't get into the PhD program because
2 years in grad school.
Because with master's degree, you got 2 years and then you're done. You know, it's different some of the time, but that's the typical.
Yes, but I don't get your point. Why
it
did
was
it
very
work
taxing.
Well,
because if I had gotten to the PhD program, it would have been 5 years at least, and I wouldn't. And so I would have gotten 2 years in, and if I had been as tired as I was after 2 years of the master's degree, I would have burnt out and might have had to drop out.
No, really?
Yeah, no, seriously.
Is that so awesome?
Yeah, and
you would have burned out there?
it's not guaranteed, but there's a good likelihood of it. And so with a master's degree, unfortunately, I did get some debt because I didn't have any from undergrad. Because like that one, I chose for a scholarship as well. It was I made scholarships drove my decisions on this front, but 2 years I finished up. I was exhausted but I was done. I had the degree. I had the master's degree. And it was locked in, and I got to walk away. You know, but if I had a PhD, I would have been 2 years in and miserable and exhausted, and then I would still have at least 3 years before there's anything to show for it.
Yes, I understand.
I still wouldn't be done.
Austin, did you just hear that chime?
Yes.
Now, where did that come from? One of my smartphones?
I think it was that phone right there.
And you think it is a smartphone?
I believe so.
Now, what is the smartphone saying?
I just heard a ding, like a little twinkle.
Do you think it's saying an email?
Maybe. I mean, I don't know how you have it set up.
Okay.
Here, I'm gonna take a look and make sure that this one is all still good. That the composition hasn't moved. It's still recording. Yeah, we're still recording. We're good.
It means you have a notification, Glendora.
What, dear? A notification?
Yeah.
Like what, for instance?
It says enable battery protection.
What, dear?
It says to extend the lifespan of your battery, but you don't have to do that.
Why?
Because your battery's fine.
Oh. Now, Austin, then, what year was it when you received your master's degree? What spring?
That was 2022. So it was two and a half years ago I got it.
It was in 22?
Mm-hmm.
And then, Austin, you started applying for jobs.
Yes.
And where did you apply, dear?
I applied to a lot of different things. I applied to a lot of, I'm trying to think of a good example of the stuff I applied to and didn't get. I mean, a lot of, environmentally oriented jobs, a lot of, mapping related jobs, because I used a program in grad school called ArcGIS, and GIS is Geographic Information System, and so it's basically software where you make maps, and so I knew how to use it, and I also knew how to do data processing. It's like you can look at the maps, like specific types of maps, and be able to make an analysis using those maps.
And how many did you get an acceptance?
I mean, I got, after 5 months or so being unemployed, I did get a job with the Nashville Planning Department.
Nashville what?
Planning Department, like zoning.
The Nashville Planning Board.
The department itself. The board is related to the department, but yes.
And a planning board or a planning commission does what, Austin?
Makes decisions about land use, about where you can build certain things, about how big a lot has to be, about how large the buildings can be, how many people you can have living there. It's a lot of stuff like that. It's a lot of nitty-gritty details.
Austin, what is one of the best planned cities in the USA?
Well, so overall, not necessarily, but Savannah, Georgia has the old part of Savannah, Georgia is really, really well respected in the planning because it's an old city, and it was designed in the late 1600s so that everyone had access to a park, right? So it's like a rectangle of buildings with a park in the middle, and there's 13 of those, and so almost every single building in the old part of the town, you can there's shops you can get to. You can walk out of your door and go to a shop easily. There's a park, and there's lots of trees, and they're old, mature, really like majestic live oaks, which are, it's like a type of oak tree that grows in the south where lots of moss grows on it. And so they provide a lot of shade. They're awesome. They're really cool. And so this old part of Savannah is really well respected in planning as like a profession.
That's interesting.
And it's partially because in so much of the United States, you're not allowed to build that anymore. You have to build single-family homes that don't touch each other.
Listen, honey, would your dream be somebody who has enough influence to bring about a greatly well-planned city?
Yes, but the thing is, if a single person of great influence does it, then that means that the people who live there aren't making enough of the decisions.
I see.
So it needs to be a collaboration, basically. You need to make sure that the people who live there are involved, or else things will get everyone will be mad and they won't like it, and then and so it's you need to figure out how to introduce things that will benefit the public, and while simultaneously getting them on board, because the literature, right, the science, the research, there's the things that says will help, but if you don't do it in a way that people are interested in, then they get mad, because it's like you're making all these decisions without us, and like we're resentful of that, and like don't want this to happen. And so it's tough, because the way that we do things is set up to make it so that it's easy to make money on land rather than use it to live, right? And so we've been doing things like that for like 70 years since the post World War II. We've designed everything so that people need to own a car to go anywhere, so that way you have to buy gas, right? You have to buy a car, you have to buy car insurance, so that a bunch of big companies can take your money in order for you to participate in society. That's kind of like, now, there's a difference between actively desiring a car and living somewhere where you know you live there because you want to, and you can use the car, versus someone who would like to live without one so they can save money, but there's nowhere available where you can live without having one. So there's not enough opportunities and options for people, is one of the big problems. There's only one or two options, and it's big house and you have to drive a car, or you live in a really big ugly apartment building owned by a big company and they don't care about you. It's like, and there's not really anything between.
Now, I mentioned to you some months ago Dan Buettner.
Yes.
Have you looked into Dan Buettner, which is part of his big life is to design, and he has designed a few cities.
Yes.
Did you look into his website? I
have done some. I don't have any like really in-depth like information available off the top of my head. I do. But it gets talked about a lot within planning. The blue zones are like really big
blue zones. You know, Austin, I'm going to live until I'm 107.
I'm not terribly surprised.
Because I'm going to live in a blue zone.
Yeah.
And I'm vegan.
Yeah.
And you're still vegan, aren't you?
Pretty close, yeah.
And they all are healthy folks, and they have a good attitude, and they are jolly, and they exercise a lot.
Yes.
And there are 7 of them all over the world. Do you know where they are? Is there one in Sardinia, one in...
Yeah, Loma Linda, California, I think, is one of them. There's parts of Japan. There's somewhere in Japan. I don't remember exactly where in Japan.
Costa Rica, is there one?
There's one in I believe it's Costa Rica. Sardinia. I don't remember where all of them are.
The oldest living person in the world now, folks, is 117, and I believe he's in South America somewhere. And it wasn't very long ago, folks, that the oldest living person in the world was 117, and she lived in between Spain and France.
In Andorra?
Yeah.
Like the little mountain country?
Yes.
Yeah.
And you know, honey, she was born in the United States.
Interesting.
And her daddy had a Spanish newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
And when she was a teenager, her daddy decided to move back to Spain. And she went back to Spain, and there she became the oldest person in the world.
Yeah.
However, you don't have to wait long. She moved on to heaven.
I mean, 117 is a pretty good accomplishment.
Yeah, do you know?
Actually, I heard that she was 122.
When she actually
What
died.
was that, Amy? Say that
I
again.
heard that she was actually 122 when she actually died.
That's wild.
And who was that, dear?
The lady you were talking about, the woman from Spain. She was 122.
Oh, I was wrong?
Yeah.
She was 117 at one point.
Amy,
She just lived a few years longer.
Amy, keep on correcting me, will you?
Yes.
And how long ago did she die?
I think it was like last year or the year before.
That's not close enough. Can't you tell me on your phone?
Let's see.
Her first name was Marie. Okay, folks. Anyway, why did I bring that up, honey?
Blue
because
Zones.
Dan Buettner.
Yes, Buettner, yeah.
Let me spell that name for you, everybody. B-boy, U-E-T, T as in Tom, N-E-R, Dan Buettner. And that's the name of his website, isn't it? Dan
I
Buettner?
believe so, yeah. I mean, if you search for him, you will find him. Yes, he's pretty well known.
Well, the reason I wanted you to look at his website is because he had great success in designing and improving cities.
Yes.
Where
He's
people
a
could
consultant.
walk to work, honey.
Yes.
And where people were much more neighborly.
Yes.
And people were much happier.
Yes.
And they had little parks, as you say, and trees.
Yes. It's the Blue Zone. Like, some of the most important aspects of it are when people get old, you make sure that they stay present in the community so that they don't just go away. Like, that's one of the most important things you can do is keep them social, active, and present so that people can see them and interact with them. And like you make sure that they keep doing the things that they gotta do, and you make it safe for them to do that.
Yes, and also the fact that they didn't have to inhale gasoline.
Correct.
Yes,
products. Minimal vehicles, if any. Like, the ability to walk around to go places keeps you alive longer, because every day you get up and you walk 2 minutes to go to a little shop to get your fresh veggies or whatever, and you walk 2 minutes to go home. That's already, a quarter of a mile. And if over the course of the day, if you just do that a couple times, you get in a couple miles of walking in every day, and that keeps you like healthy and active. And but you have to build it so that people can.
Austin,
I'm sorry, Glendora,
Yeah.
I was wrong. The woman that you were talking about, Maria from Spain, it said that she died Monday, August 19th, 2024. At the age of 117.
Yes. Okay.
So.
I'm exonerated.
I think the woman before her from France was actually older than her. Like.
Yeah.
No,
Sounds familiar.
Austin, how old are you?
31.
31.
Yep.
So we've known each other, what? 12 years?
13 and a half.
Yeah, 13 and a half. We had good times together, didn't we?
Yeah. Absolutely.
We made so many TV shows.
Oh,
right?
quite a few.
Yeah. And we did such a good job on the Glendora Franklin Museum, didn't we?
Yeah. I mean, I saw it on the way over.
You did?
Yeah.
And it
Still
was
green.
And you notice that your paint job is still good?
I'm surprised, but I'm glad.
Well, that's because you bought such good paint at.
And I think I did 2 layers or 3 layers maybe of paint. Yeah.
What was that name? What's the name of that store? Home Depot.
We got a Home Depot. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when it was blue at one point, and I painted it purple. It was purple for a couple years, but I think it was purple when it was at the parking lot at Amanda's fireplace, right?
Right, honey.
And then I think I painted it green after we moved it over there so that it wouldn't stand out as much.
We did, and there was a time when it was blue. One year it was blue.
I painted it purple when it was originally blue.
And one year, folks, the museum was red, white, and blue.
Yes.
Now, what do you hope for the future, dear boy?
At what scale? Like my own, or like the
Oh no,
the people
for
I know?
you, Austin, my friend.
For me, I want to do basically like environmental planning or environmental like consulting. I basically want to like come into a town or a city and talk to people and see what they're trying to do and advise them how to do it in the most like environmentally, like friendly way possible, the most resilient way, so that they can, when climate change keeps happening, that they're prepared. All right, so that things don't get wrecked. And one of the best ways to do that is by using like plants and like as part of your infrastructure. Like, it's better to have, if you got a river, to have a big wide area where you have plants on both sides of the river, so that if it ever floods, they hold all the dirt in place.
Really?
Yep, as a basic example. And so, like, and also that means that everyone gets to see the plants and interact with them. And they feed the birds and the bugs and the squirrels. It's a net positive. It's just when you, almost any direction you come at it from, it's a positive. The only negative is that some company can't make a ton of money off it very easily. That's the only downside. And it's not a downside to me. I don't care. But so it's about finding a way to make it happen and showing people it's like, hey, you could save a lot of money, if you do this, because you won't need to fix all of these buildings near the river when it floods, because it'll be protected by all these trees that like to grow next to the river anyway, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what I want to do professionally, and then personally, I'm really interested in creating and then maintaining a conservation cemetery, which is where what you do is you take land and you conserve it, right? You start planting all of the original plants and making sure that nobody puts garbage on it. And then what you do is when you use it as a cemetery as well. And so when people die, rather than embalming them and putting all the gross fluids in them, you put them right in the ground so they can turn into plants, basically, as a very brief summary of how it works. You can do it with ashes as well, but you can do it just, with the body as it is. You don't need to do anything. You just wrap them in burlap and put them in the ground and put on a rock that says their name, and then they turn into plants, basically. And I think it's a really, really awesome way of both doing conservation and restoration and providing habitat for animals, but also giving people a reason to care, right? Because it's like, if their loved ones are buried there, they want this place to be nice, and they want it to be intact and healthy. And so by doing this, and then when they visit their loved one's grave, they go to a beautiful nature preserve rather than like a big, like open air like graveyard that's typical. But it's still a cemetery. People are still buried there, and it's kind of really useful for getting people to buy in and care. That's one of the things that I think is the most powerful about it, so that people care about taking care of this space.
Well,
yeah, and it's super. I went to one in Tennessee, and it's really beautiful. it's like one of my coworker's husband is buried there, you know. So I just think it's, I don't know, I'm really attached to the idea, and I think it feels like a good intersection of sentimental and pragmatic.
A good answer.
So that's kind of what I want my personal project to be.
Very good
Yeah,
and very interesting and quite informative.
Yes.
Amy, what do you think of that kind of a cemetery?
That's interesting.
Yeah. It's a little
says it's
abnormal for
interesting.
now, but there's, I think, a lot of potential for it, and showing people how it's done and having examples that it's actually can be really great is how we get people to understand that, okay, yeah, this is like a pretty cool thing to do, and to
Yeah.
not be afraid of it.
Do you know any graveyard jokes, honey?
Do you?
Yes. The epitaph on the tombstone of the hypochondriac. Do you know what it said?
No.
See, I told you I was sick. And
That's funny.
the man who was a fan of Beethoven's music,
Yeah.
and he went to the composer's grave, and he's standing there and he hears all the Beethoven symphonies coming out of the composer's grave.
Yeah.
But they're all being played backwards, folks, and they're all being played in the reverse order in which they were written. Beethoven's 9th, Beethoven's 8th, Beethoven's 7th. And he says to the graveyard digger, I don't get it. I'm trying to hear the composer's symphonies. They're all being played backwards, and they're all played in the reverse order in which they were written. And the graveyard digger says, don't you get it? He's decomposing.
That's funny.
What about the one with the little boy who went to school and said, I was at a cemetery yesterday?
Yeah, can you tell it, honey? And the teacher said, was there anybody dead? And what did he say?
He said, yes, they all were.
Okay, that's pretty
Good for you, Amy.
good.
Well, Austin, is there anything else that you would like the world to know about this interesting field?
I get, like, one of the current things I'm working on is I've got a partnership with Edge Hill United Methodist Church, and Edge Hill is the neighborhood that I live in, and so this church is really well known for just like being forward thinking and trying to be really a positive influence on the community about ensuring that everyone is welcome there. They're really great people, and I was talking to them because I was basically mentoring a neighbor like who lives across the street from this church, and like giving her plants that I've grown, because I really like to grow native plants, which is plants that are from North America. A lot of the plants that we use in horticulture at Home Depot and at the hardware store are not from the United States, or they don't have to be. It doesn't have to be exclusively the U.S. Canada and Mexico are reasonable if you're close to them, but it's the plants that grow in the region you live in, because the animals need those to live. They need them to eat those. Like a caterpillar grows by eating the leaves of an oak tree, right? But if you plant, one example that's common in Nashville is a crepe myrtle. It's from South China, and they're cool trees, and they play a wonderful part in the ecosystem where in their home range of South China. But in the United States and North America, and if you plant them anywhere else, whether it's Europe or South Africa, anywhere where it's a kind of comparable climate, none of the animals know what they are. They don't really understand that it's like that they can eat it, or sometimes they can't eat it. So it takes up a bunch of space, but there's no food for the animals that comes out of it. And so when you plant only stuff from Europe and China and anywhere else where you can pull stuff from.
And this has what to do with the United Methodist Church?
So what I'm doing is I'm teaching the congregation. I'm running a series of classes.
Excuse me, Austin.
Yeah.
You hear that beep? Does that have anything to do with our apparatus?
I don't think so. I think it's it's warning to change the battery of it at some
Amy,
point.
did you put in excuse us, folks. We'll be right back. Did you put in AC, Amy? Austin, do you see an AC charger here? You see?
No, Glendora, that beeping sound is your smoke detector.
Yeah, it probably wants a new 9-volt battery.
It what?
My guess is that it needs a new 9-volt
Well,
battery.
listen, is it going to finish our dissertation that you're in the middle of?
It'll probably beep a few more times, but like, it's not constant.
Well, are we going to lose our program, honey?
No, we'll be fine.
You sure?
I mean, there will be a couple beeps, but like, it's only every minute or so it'll be fine.
Okay, honey. So you're teaching the congregation.
So what I'm doing is I got a bunch of seeds for plants that grow that are from Tennessee. You know, Tennessee coneflower is the real big one because it only grows around Nashville in the wild. People grow it other places too, but in the wild, that's the only place that it grows in the whole world. And so I got a bunch of seeds for it. What I'm going to do is teach. The only real difference is that because we live in the like temperate latitudes where winter happens, a lot of plants protect their seeds by, over the course of hundreds of thousands of years, they've developed like mechanisms or coatings on the seeds where they need to experience winter before they'll wake up and grow, before they'll germinate. And so you need to stick them in the fridge in a baggie for like a couple months, or you can put them in a milk jug with dirt in it outside over the winter so that they experience winter. And what this means is that this mechanism is in place so that the seeds do not sprout and fall and then die from the cold. It means that they will not grow until springtime, so that they have the whole year to get ready for the next winter. And so because of that, if you just sprinkle them on the ground or in a pot in the springtime, then they won't grow.
And what does this have to do with your partnership?
So I'm basically teaching the congregation how to grow these types of plants, and it's very easy. All you got to do is know how to give them cold stratification is what it's called. But give them winter. You got to make them have winter. And then after that, you can grow them like normal flowers. And so what I'm doing with them is I'm walking them through this step, and we're going to grow flowers. And in the springtime, we're going to get together and design a garden with the flowers that the congregation is able to grow. I'm going to help too.
Good.
I'm growing a bunch so that if anyone like makes a mistake or gets busy and can't take care of it, and like they're not able to grow anything, there's stuff that I've grown that we'll be able to use. So it's to teach everyone and get everyone excited about it, and to make the front of the church beautiful and full of colors and flowers, and feed the bees and the butterflies. Because if we don't,
good for you.
We got to put in plants that they can eat, or else they're going to run out of food, and that's not good.
Well, that's just made for you, honey.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
In the process, are you going to become a Methodist?
Probably not, but I'll probably go to service a couple times.
Well, listen, Austin. Anything else you want to say before you bid goodbye to our folks?
I mean, if anyone is excited about that, I'd recommend you look into what plants are native to where you live, and just learning a couple of them. And there's almost always something that you can start out with that's easy to grow. You can grow it in a pot. You can grow it in the ground. You can grow it and then give it to somebody if you want. There's all kinds of things you can do. If you're in an apartment, you can't plant stuff in the ground. That's when pots are awesome.
And where do you find these answers? Where are the answers? How do you know all these things?
There's a lot of scientists who are really into it, and they've been writing books for the general population. They've been turning it. They've been making sure to say it in normal people words, so that you don't need to have a PhD or a big degree in science. In order to, anyone can understand it enough to do it, and then they learn by doing it, and that is really valuable knowledge too. So,
Amy,
yeah.
Do you have anything to add, dear?
No.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I've been really into it for a couple years at this point, but most of the time, people just need encouragement. They just, if you encourage them and they get started, they'll succeed with something. That's the great thing about these plants is they grow in the woods, they grow in a field, they can grow in your yard.
So, folks, he is from the Albany Capital District.
Yeah.
And this show is coming to you from Nassau, New York. Now, this is Nassau-Rensselaer County up in
not Nassau
Albany.
County in Long Island. That's 150 miles away.
In that direction.
Yeah, south.
And you're on Christmas vacation, and you're going to return to Tennessee when?
So I'm going to Boston this weekend. And I've
good.
got some time in Boston. I've got a lot of people I need to keep in touch with.
Oh, hundreds.
Not hundreds, but a dozen, give or take.
You were there 5 years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, keep in mind, some of them don't live there anymore.
Yeah, that's right.
But I have a couple of friends are getting married next year, so I'm going to check in with them and like see what's like, kind of hear what they're talking about and what they're planning for their wedding, so that I just to say hello, and it's exciting that they're getting married.
And speaking of married,
yeah,
and New Year's Eve, folks, I mean Christmas Eve.
Oh yeah.
Yes, my husband and I were married on Christmas Day, and it was near Boston, Wellesley Hills, the First Congregational Church by the Reverend Dr. John Elmo Wallace.
Yeah. When was this? 1950?
Yeah, that fits right in.
Something.
Well, Austin, anything else you want for the last word?
Let's see. I mean, I can keep spieling and proselytizing about my about caring about your local plants and animals indefinitely. So I'm trying to see if there's any any wrap up moments.
Ad infinitum.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I guess so. I mean, I guess what I'll say is like every little bit helps. If you don't want to. Like, some people are removing their entire lawn because it's all European lawn grasses that don't feed any bugs, really, right? And they don't feed any animals, and they just take up a lot of space. So what some people are doing is they're taking all of it out and they're planting a meadow of wildflowers. So there's hundreds and hundreds of different types of flowers, and it's awesome. It's super cool, really beautiful. They changed out the seasons, so every day is a little bit different. But if that's too much, you don't got to do all of that. You can just put in a couple and see how you like it, and that helps.
All right, dear.
Yeah.
Are those your final words?
If you're only going to pick one or two types, milkweeds are a great place to start because the monarch butterflies need milkweed. Genus is Asclepias, Asclepias. You don't need to remember that, but if you see it, you might recognize it because I said it. Genus is Asclepias, but milkweed.
If a person really would like to talk to you more about this, can you give them a contact right now?
Yeah, I have an email I use specifically for that kind of stuff. It's fernandez.horticulture@gmail.com.
Again, Austin?
So Fernandez, FernandezHorticulture, which is
Fernandez.horticulture
@gmail.com.
Gmail?
Yes, I'm happy to provide tips. Now, I've been working in Tennessee for a few years, so my knowledge is very much anchored in what it's like to do it in Tennessee, but anywhere east of the Mississippi I can help, and I can provide pointers for anywhere in North America.
Good, honey.
Yeah,
Fernandez. Go ahead.
.horticulture. So
Fernandez.horticulture. That's a nice.
@gmail.
That's a good moniker.
Yeah, no, it's easy to remember. I don't have any weird, wrong spellings or anything. It's it's a common name and a word.
Okay.
So like there's no weird numbers or anything. It's just that. So if people are interested, feel free to send me an email, and even if you're in Maine, it's way colder than Tennessee, I can still get you started.
Now, folks.
Yeah.
One more graveyard joke. Be kind to your undertaker. He's the last person in the world to let you down. Take care, everybody. Say goodbye, Austin.
Right. Goodbye. Happy holidays, or I guess if you're watching this after the holidays, I hope they were good.
And Amy, say goodbye.
Bye.
Grace and peace, everybody. It's God's universe. Live by God's laws. Stay vegan. Be kind. We send you a Christmas present, and we put it in a little box with a ribbon around it, and you open it up, and you know what's in there for you? Joy. Amen.